second quickest way to kill a good idea is that politicians get involved. Getting state bureaucrats and council bureaucrats to work together and to not spend a lot of time talking about nothing is a big challenge in itself.
Mark Hammel has done a lot of work on this whole area of planning. And we're going to talk a deeper dive with Mark, who's going to give us as much information as we can about the problems that we're dealing with.
We've got issues everywhere where people are getting work done and the quality is shit. Getting a waterproof and a tiler and getting a decent one is a real hard job in this country at the moment.
You have to earn $166,000 a year to be able to rent a house in the Gold Coast for $900 a week, which is more the average. The people that we need to run the machine can no longer be in the machine.
Yeah.
They literally have to be bussed in.
From my perspective, it seems like the Gold Coast market has matured. It's not that just tourism town anymore.
The story of the diversification of this city's economy and those job opportunities that are coming out now is incredible. The train can't be stopped. Growth is coming if we like it or not. The more time we spend beating our chests trying to stop growth or argue against it, that's less time being spent having a real conversation about how do we plan for it and plan for it well.
Hi and welcome to Unemployable Property. We're coming to you live from the Gold Coast, and today I'd like to reintroduce you to the fact that I'm just a step in for Eric Machado, who's on holidays, the lucky little devil, and enjoying life in the fast lane. On my right, of course, we've got Carson Bolt and Shannon Sharp. Sharp by name, sometimes blunt by nature. And we have a very special guest coming to us today, and that would be the Deputy Mayor and Planning Chair, Councillor Division 1, Pimpama, Ormo, Yatala, all those wonderful places, and also a place called Norwell, which is not far from a place called Jacobswell, in case you don't know where Norwell is. Mark Hammel has done a lot of work on this whole area of planning. This is his thing, and we're going to talk a deeper dive, a bit of an unplugged session with Mark, who's going to give us as much information as we can about the problems that we're dealing with. But before I bring that on, I'd like to talk a little bit about a report that's just come out only yesterday, and that would be that the Gold Coast market has just overtaken every capital city, and I mean every capital city in Australia, for economic growth. That is a big one. That's according to Ryder Research, putting the Gold Coast at gross regional products at $49.46 billion, making it the largest non-capital economy. The numbers are strong and actually striking. 420 residents every week coming into the Gold Coast, $91 billion in infrastructure pipelines, and a housing supply deficit landing on them as well because of the 4,091 approvals against a need for probably 9,250 annually, puts the Gold Coast in a position of the fact that their success is making it the most challenging job for anyone in town planning. It is just a remarkable thing to have to deal with. Just in the prestige area of Mermaid Beach, houses surged 32% in the last 12 months. The Gold Coast is no longer speculative. It is a structural shift as to where Australians want to live and where they want to work. These are problems that the Gold Coast has to face. And with us today, we've got Mark Hammel in the hot seat. Welcome, Mark.
Gents, good morning. Great to be here.
Great to have you here.
Thanks for coming on.
So let's get on with the show. Questions from you?
Mate, I'd love to know a bit about your history. Where did the family land? Where did you start before we start getting into the depths of Kev's questions?
Mate, happy to. Bit of a unique family history on the Gold Coast. I think for a lot of people that think they've been on the Gold Coast for a long time and they hear that my family's been here since 1860, strikes them. They don't realise that there's been European families here for that length of time. We're used to most Gold Coasters being here 10 years or 20 years or maybe 30. So 160 years plus on the north end of the Gold Coast. Still operating a family business up there. So we're in the farming sector. Still got active farms today and other interests in the north of the city. But really proud. So raising my two sons, they'll be the 7th generation to grow up on that property and grow up in that house. So really cool story, which for me is the broader story of the Gold Coast. You know, we came from another continent. We were looking for a better life for the family then, came to Australia for that, settled on what is now the Gold Coast, and that's still the Gold Coast story. An aspirational city where people are coming to because they can't or don't want to do it in Sydney or Melbourne, and why the hell would you want to do it in Brisbane? Come and have a go on the Gold Coast and do it, and that's keeping our mindset that way. That's really important to the Gold Coast and its ongoing success.
How do we deal with the fact that probably when you talk about the growth numbers that I just touched on there, I mean, you're talking 420 new residents every week. I mean, 1 million people means we're probably going to have to deal with cars beyond imagination, transport issues. You can't just build a tunnel, that's 1.3 billion per kilometre. You can't build a rail link, that's another 1.1 billion per kilometre. I mean, you've got some massive problems both in getting people to and from the Gold Coast. You know, a dog gets hit on the M1, that's the end of the Gold Coast in terms of being able to go to and from. So the complications you're facing is the impact of being loved to death.
Yeah, it's huge. All those numbers you mentioned in the intro, like they're brilliant numbers and they're great numbers to have in the glossy document, but the glossy document also comes with a massive challenge of we have got some serious infrastructure upgrades we need to do. And that's to get people between the cities, but that's to make sure that if you own a business in Palm Beach or in Surfers Paradise, you got a hotel, you got a restaurant, how far out are your staff traveling to get here? Because at the moment, they are getting priced out of the Gold Coast, and we cannot become a city where all of those service-based industries, tourism, hospitality, that rely upon a workforce that can't afford to live on the ocean in Palm Beach, they need to be able to live in the city at an affordable rate or rent at an affordable rate, have to have that. The infrastructure piece was at a breakfast this morning. The Premier was very strong on that. He made a very big commitment this morning that this will be the biggest state budget the city's ever seen for infrastructure investment. That'll be critical. We're going to probably need to back that up with the next 10 being in that same realm. And that's going to have to be the same from the city. We're not afraid to have a big vision. You got to back that up with big infrastructure investment. There's no point trying to be a steer now and trying to count pennies right now. It has to be big investment, big projects, big road upgrades, big intersection upgrades, hopefully a very big public transport network coming from the state government soon we can connect into. Which doesn't just address today's problems, but hopefully means when we're all sitting here in 30 years' time, that we're not talking about the same problem that you can't get around the city.
I think another question I'd raise there is you talk about essential workers, for a want of a better word, and when we're talking essential workers in the Gold Coast, that includes coffee baristas pretty well, because, you know, you've got to have those machines working. But I guess I'm referring to nurses, firefighters, things of that nature. You have to earn $166,000 a year to be able to rent a house in the Gold Coast for $900 a week, which is more the average, which means basically the people that we need to run the machine can no longer be in the machine.
Yeah.
They literally have to be bussed in. The last time I've seen this happen was in Paris in 1850, and the actual Paris government said that you cannot build any building unless you supply affordable housing within the structure of the building. And their chambermaids and everyone else had to be housed within the house itself. You have attempted to introduce affordable housing, in particular, an article I read recently on the Walker development, where you had asked for affordable housing as a component of that. What happened? How does the state suddenly decide to change that, and why?
Fair to say, fairly dynamic time in Queensland with the change of state government around some of the rules that were coming in place around mandates. Under the previous Labor state government, I think we were definitely heading down a path where they were heading towards full inclusionary planning, is I think is where they were going. And maybe they should have been a bit more brave of actually making that clear at the time, because I think what we ended up with was a series of knee-jerk reactions that weren't thought through particularly well. The industry didn't understand what the government actually wanted or how it was going to be used or rolled out. The SFD process, which the Walker Corp one you mentioned, was one of the first ones announced. For a big, sophisticated company like Walker Corp to not understand what the intent of the government was, that's a bit of a problem. You're now seeing the LNP government come in, make the announcement just last week that they're going to remove those percentage mandates from all those developments. They've also made it very clear it's not that they're against affordable housing, but that it's not through mandates in their opinion, that it's through investment or co-contributions or through grant applications to help make some of that product work. I just don't think any of those settings are right yet. The feedback, and I love feasibilities. I'm forever encouraging people to come in, bring me the feasibility on that site, show me why it doesn't work, show me the numbers that from a council point of view, like infrastructure charges, for example, or the post-assessment process, but through the state part as well, like where is it not working? Affordability is easy to say, but not very practically easy to make happen just at the moment. And that's not just on the Gold Coast, that's being felt everywhere. I still don't think we've got the metrics right, and we're not pulling the right levers, and we're not quite on the right path to actually get genuine volume scale, affordable product into the market, which means that dwelling deficit that you mentioned before is going to continue to get bigger. You know, there's a lot of units about to come onto the market, but after that wave, the numbers go down. This problem is not going to get better before it gets, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Sorry. Hopefully, I think the biggest lever we have up our sleeve and one that has to be right, it has to deliver, is the new planning scheme.
Which is coming out soon.
We are on track to have it in place by the end of next year. It is critical. It has to pull some big levers, not just to get things moving today, but to make sure in 5, 10, 15 years that we have changed that curve around. And hopefully in 15 years' time, if I'm lucky enough to be back on the show, we're talking about the fact that we managed to pull some levers and change the curve and get back to the 9,000, 10,000 dwellings a year that we're going to have to be delivering around 2035, 2036.
So for the listeners, two things, if I may. You mentioned SFD. Could you just explain to them what that meant?
Yeah, so state facilitated development.
Thank you.
So a pathway the state government introduced where if a developer felt that they had a project that made sense and stacked up, that they couldn't get through a council, but they could come directly to the state government and bypass local councils. I think it's a bit interesting. Of all the local governments, I think Gold Coast probably is the one that doesn't need that. I think we're pretty open to, if you can come to us and show us a project and it makes sense and we need to change the rule book, we're prepared to look at that. The Walker Court proposal, I think, because the size and volume of it probably deserved a state-led process. That's brilliant. The state should have a state-led process, but it needs to be consistent and it needs to be understandable and it has to be set with the right parameters of what it's looking to achieve. SFD was introduced by the Labor government very late in their term. I think it was a knee-jerk reaction. I don't think they'd thought it through properly of how it was actually going to work and how industry would use it. Kind of bit them on the arse, in all honesty. I think the industry bit back pretty hard. LNP is trying, I think, to listen to industry and understand the feasibility and what will actually make it work, which honestly is going to be just acknowledging that as soon as they set a process in place today, come tomorrow, things are moving so quickly, it's going to be time eroded. And that probably within 12 months, you'll have to update it again. It needs to be a process that can be nimble and be updated, not a set and forget thing, which governments are pretty good at doing.
Most people, when they're investing in real estate, are buying today and holding for 10 years, hoping that the value of your property is going to go up. Other people are buying negatively geared properties for tax purposes. Let me tell you what Kevin Dooney are teaching people how to invest in rooming houses. What's a rooming house? It's a house with 5 separate rooms with their own kitchenettes, with their own bathrooms, and 5 different people live in these houses.
If you want to know more about that, just find me as Kevin Doodney. That's little old me. I'm on the socials. You'll find me on YouTube. You're welcome to contact me directly. It's not a problem. Happy to help, happy to chat. Just give us a yell and I will call you back. Thanks, guys.
That feasibility component is an interesting one because we see, state governments can say, or, you have these PDA areas and say, oh, we'll just do all these high rises through here. And that's all great. You look at it and say, look, we can get another 60,000 dwellings, it all works. And then the reality is that 30 to 50% of DAs for high rises don't get built. So you got your detached housing, and which does. How do you find that balance? And we go to some of these, UDIA meetings and bits and pieces, and now some of the state government guys are coming saying, oh, okay, we're adding a feasibility component. So when we release, our plans to get to the magic number, there's actually some real world kind of feasibilities. What's your thoughts on all that?
Mate, first of all, I ain't interested in seeing anyone get the crowns out and change the colour on any map unless there's a feasibility study that proves it's going to work. Like, what's the point? So, our new planning scheme will be built around a feasibility model that has been tested to the shithouse by industry, so there's agreement to it, so there's no conflict later on. We've shown it to the state government so they understand it, and that, to me, should be how it's done everywhere. What is the point of pulling any levers, changing any colours on maps, doing anything, or making any announcements if the next day the UDIA comes out and says, well, that's brilliant to do, Minister, but it doesn't work. No one can make that work. That's been really key to us because I think the high-rise comment's exactly spot on. We're not going to solve this problem through a whole heap of tower development. That's just not going to be it. I mean, the conditions now make it that impossible, but even 5 years ago, when that was kind of the concept of this missing middle piece being in 6 to 10-story towers everywhere, which is what the current planning scheme was trying to drive, we put the big medium density pink brush everywhere and thought we're going to get all the 6 to 10-story product, and we've had none of it. Our new planning scheme is very clear in that we see the inner spine, so the suburbs like Helensvale, Coomera, Ashmore, Benoa, down through those kind of areas that more closer to the M1 that are great locations, have got great schools, great medical facilities, great parks and amenity. They've also got bigger blocks, although there is land availability where splitting blocks or doing CTS schemes on properties would work. That it's not about putting unit towers there, it's about on slab timber construction. more townhouses, more duplexes, more triplexes, rooming accommodation, micro lot, the mix of all of it to make sure that it's on slab, timber frame, easy to understand, easy for the banks to understand, and hopefully fixes that medium-term gap we have of getting more dwellings onto the market in a lot shorter term.
So there's the practical nature of that. Obviously, on the Gold Coast, low density residential, we got 600 square metre minimum lot size. You got places like Brisbane, might have a 400. And then I look at the rural res side of things. We've got an average of 8,000, a minimum of 4, and you got other councils, say like Moreton, where you have like 3,000s with just a minimum. Do you look at the minimum lot size, or is there a play where we just go, okay, let's just paint a different colour crayon in the Carraras and the Ashmores and Helens Vales and just do more of a medium density to your point of, keeping the house and putting a few townhouses at the back to kind of not have that urban sprawl and that pressure on infrastructure?
I try and be really careful about getting caught up in the lot size argument, because it's amazing how politicians and some in the community will get caught up. Oh, you can't suggest a 300 square metre block. I'm like, apart from on the 2D plan at DA stage, whoever knows what size that block is? Just in the same way I challenge most Gold Coasters to look at a tower on the beach and tell me how tall in metres it is. Like, we get so caught up in the height of the box or what the lot size is when that's not how we live. Drive down the street and from the street frontage tell me how big those blocks are. Now, you boys probably could, because you're in the industry. You probably knew the age of the suburb. You probably go, right, that's 20 metres wide. It's probably that deep. It's 600 square metres. But to everyone else, all they see is a front of a house, a driveway, the landscaping at the front. So protecting what we love about those suburbs and what they mean as suburbs, absolutely. But not getting caught up in lot sizes, getting caught up in how do we get more dwellings at an affordable price point into locations people want to live in. Not everyone wants to live on the beach. That's not the Gold Coast lifestyle for everybody. The majority of Gold Coasters live in our suburbs. They live there because they're close to the schools their kids go to, they're close to their work, whatever it may be. It's close to where their family grew up. It's where they want to live. It's where they want to age. I mean, don't get me started on purpose-built aged care and the problem we've got in that space in this city. So I don't get caught up in lot sizes. I get caught up in what is actually feasible, what's achievable, where do people want to live. It's in those suburbs. We can make that happen through a range of different products and use the right controls. We don't have to paint the brush across the entire city. It might very well be that a precinct around, say, Benoa Gardens, that we just did a really, I think, important approval around. Okay, let's look at the next ring around from that. What kind of product could go in there?
Will we see those sort of changes in the next planning scheme? We're a bit more fluid in the block sizes that you don't want to specifically specify what size they are, but will we see a bit more fluid in being able to move in those areas?
That's definitely my hope. I mean, in the end, I'm only one of 15 votes in the chamber, so what the exact end product of the new planning scheme is, but can I tell you that in the tremendous amount of sessions that we've had as the political wing and with officers trying to work out how to solve this problem and to address this problem, it's definitely that setting really hard rules around it must be a block size this big and it must be exactly this size street frontage makes it really difficult.
Yeah.
You guys know what running feasibility looks like that really makes it difficult. It's a performance-based planning scheme under performance-based legislation. I would definitely prefer to write the rules in such a way that we've got some pretty clear goalposts so you have an idea how far you can stretch the envelope, but that it doesn't stop you from putting forward a proposal saying, hey, we know the rules say that has to be a 15 square metre frontage, but we've got 14 square metres. We can still fit a proper sized driveway, can still fit one car at the front. Yeah, and it's a big block at the back. Can we do this? Write the rules in such a way that if you guys see something and see a good idea that's worth looking at, that we can look at it.
Yeah, use a lot more smart design to get these things out of the ground.
Absolutely, absolutely. Have to. Otherwise, the deficit that was mentioned before, it will be scary how bad that gets within a few years, let alone a decade.
How do you find that balance between, mum, dads, it's always been a certain way. I look at Gold Coast, and it's a fairly new city and it's been developed, right? There's no really big blocks, it's not like I look at Logan and Ipswich for small lot subdivision. There's even Moreton, there's a lot of opportunities. Gold Coast is kind of a newer city, so it's been built out probably the right way. How do you find, a balance between delivering the stock, because you got, we don't want anything to change. Not, the NIMBYs, not in my backyard, but at the same time, they're at the barbecue saying, how the heck are my kids supposed to get into that? Yeah. How do you find that the right mix, I suppose?
Mate, by having that exact conversation is the first one, is I love it when someone challenges the development in the area and I say, well, where are your kids and grandkids going to live? Like, do you have a vision in your future where when you get older, your kids live in the same suburbs with you so they can help support you to live in home? Or do you want your kids or your grandkids to be able to go to school in the same catchment that they did? So definitely challenge that because it's very quick to blame this problem purely on migration to the city, and that's a huge part of it. But just to support natural growth from our current population, we need a hell of a lot more dwellings coming on than what we have. So I break it down in the terms like that. Is that part of your family's vision, that you want your kids and grandkids to be able to live in the same suburb or the same catchment, to be part of the same sport clubs and community groups that you were? Well, if you want that, we've got to open up some dwellings and break it even further. Like the amount of people that come in that, can we put a secondary dwelling at the back because we're trying to help our kids out? Well, the current rules are pretty hard for that. Okay, well, can we change the rules so that you can do that? And then maybe if you've got a big enough block, have a third dwelling up the back that becomes an investment piece as well. We do have a unique difference versus other council areas. They do have a lot more of that opportunity to split blocks up. The way our city's kind of been rolled out, especially with where the canals sit in a lot of areas, just splitting blocks in halves and threes is not quite as easy. So it has to be more about that if you've got 400 square meters behind the back of your house and we're going to put a driveway up the side, are we going to limit you to one dwelling at the back? Or are you going to get efficient use of that land at the back, efficient use of that extra driveway and efficient use of infrastructure upgrades, and maybe get 2 dwellings out of it? All an interesting piece, and one if we don't get right, challenge of supply is going to get really, really difficult very, very quickly.
Yeah, we're definitely geographically challenged. Like we've already hit the hinterland. We can't go up the hills. Like it's very constrained. And on that, the only area is to go is north, which there's some big plans up there at the moment, if you can elaborate on.
Yeah, I can. So, pushing into the hinterlands, there is some opportunities out there. Like there's some large rural res blocks where, we've now got a situation where you've got a magical line, a cadastral map that says, well, that can be medium density to here, and then you've got a rural res block next door. Like we probably need to have a real look at those and say, well, there's infrastructure in a lot of times, like the sewer and water's right there, and it's just a colour on the map that says that has to be this. There's plenty of opportunity out there. It's not the volume to solve the problem, but it's where people want to live, and they're great dwellings in a great location, so there's plenty in there. Up in the north, while Pimpamurra and Ormo and Coomera have seen huge growth in the last 20 years, the single largest piece of available land left in the city is the cane fields. So the Norwell cane fields or Rocky Point cane fields. There's 6,000 hectares up there. It's obviously my end of the city. It's what my family have been a part of for a long time. Sugarcane production is just not viable on the Gold Coast anymore. It's been chewed up from all different ways, and the industry just can't sustain itself here anymore. So I am personally looking at how do I get a dignified transition for those families and businesses, because they're all family owned, but they're all family businesses as well, who've contributed to a lot to the city for a long time. How do we get a dignified transition for them? And then how do we capitalise on the fact that we've got 6,000 hectares east side of the M1, exactly halfway between Brisbane and Surfers Paradise, exactly halfway between 2 airports, next to the biggest industrial area in southeast Queensland, with a huge infrastructure spend with the Coomera connector along the edge of it coming. That's a pretty unique chance. Just happens to be right on southern Moreton Bay as well. Pretty unique opportunity to do something special and at scale. So there's a proponent who has been working in that area for about 5 years, putting land into a DMA agreement, development management agreement. They've got about 3,500 hectares in that agreement now, so they've got the scale. They're currently up talking with the state government about what a PDA pathway would look like. The kind of numbers that are being talked about is the potential for 600 to 700 hectares of new industrial land, and somewhere in the vicinity of 50 to 80,000 lots. So not dwellings, lots. Some of those lots are a couple hundred hectares for a town centre, for example. So, actual ultimate potential over 30 years, not quite sure of, but a lot. And a really unique chance for the Gold Coast to maybe do something really special that not only addresses the dwelling supply and the industrial land supply, which is critical, but maybe put something pretty special in the north end of the city that we can all be really proud of in a century's time.
One of the questions that raises is subdivisions such as Caboolture West in Moreton, Roachdale South, which was a Ned Pask estate some years ago. Yeah. These estates from the time of acquisition to the time of actual title is anywhere from 10 to 15 years.
Way too long.
And so what we're talking about here is something in the year 2040. or 2035 or something of that nature. That's a long, long time.
Can't be that long, and I can promise you the plan is not to be that long. So the proponent in seeking a PDA declaration is right. They've been expected to demonstrate how they would activate early activation areas straight away. So the ILIP that comes with a PDA declaration. I have been in meetings where it has been made very clear from very senior ministers that if there's not excavators there shifting soil the day after we declare this thing, what are you doing? So that they've been asked for that proof because they've got to start drilling potential in it straight away.
One of the issues, again, raising from that, though, is when you hit the million, that's 200, hundreds of thousands of litres a day in water. And that's an area that is outside of, generally, council, is the supply of power, water and sewage. And the infrastructure systems won't take that. I mean, they literally will crack. And so they will stop you. They'll say, we can't provide that water. GemLife, for instance, when they build an over 50s now, automatically have to go off grid for up to a year in their residence as they first move in because they simply don't have access to the infrastructure. And when you start talking about a project that big, the real levers that are hard to move are these guys from QUU and others to get them to get their finger out and actually produce taps that turn water on. It leads us to the fact that a big shift that's going on is off-grid communities that can then plug back into communities' infrastructure. Is that something a council would consider, is an off-grid approach until such times as that infrastructure would catch up?
So we're fairly lucky in one sense that while we hadn't had strict structure planning done over the entire Canefields area, there's definitely still been plans for growth in the north of the city, especially in the industrial area. So there is a lot of latent capacity planned in our sewer network and water network in that end of the city. There's also been a gross underutilisation of land in the north of the city. So the majority of Coomera was medium density, and all we've seen is 400 square metre blocks. So sewage treatment plants, big pipes and grounds, pump stations, water pipes, water reservoirs that were built assuming an ultimate population of X, and we've undercooked it by 50% in some of those areas. So I am confident that to get to the ultimate outcome of Norwell, all those challenges are there. There is plenty of capacity supply in the first instance. There's future sewage treatment plants the city had already had planned that can be upgraded. STPs are one of the main ones that kill councils pretty quick. Sewage treatment plants are bloody expensive and the right location to put it. Technology is improving, but so using existing footprints and putting in better technology so you don't have to try and find greenfield sites is getting better. The off-grid idea, but is there smarter and smarter solutions? The boys near have talked about stormwater on a few occasions with me, that there is new tech, new ideas around the world that can be adopted in Australia that could help with some of those challenges that make the stack work. To me, I think all options have to be on the table for council and the state government, because in the end, something of this scale is definitely state government led. All those options should be on the table, especially if it means that there's dwellings getting on the market with people in them sooner.
Another one to that area that I just want to ask is a lot of that area is subject to flooding up there. Will we be looking at more Calypso Bay style, a lot more canals in that area? What is it, earthworks or?
So just like the entire Gold Coast, it's part of the floodplain. It still amazes me the amount of people I talk to from interstate that when you say, well, that canal estate you live on in Broadbeach Waters was a floodplain once too. So don't get too caught up by the hydraulics. It's not riverine hydraulics, like it's not Ipswich where you got 6 meters of water comes through at velocity. It's at high tide, it comes back in off the bay during big events. It can be dealt with. So I've definitely seen a hydraulics model that works, where they can, through a very big earthworks exercise, get developable pads. I don't personally see a lot of the Calypso Bay kind of product because that's a lot of land taken up by roads and canals, and the actual yield is not huge. I'm sure there'll be some of that in amongst it. It's 6,000 hectares. You could have some of that somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm hoping what it is create big developable pads where we can get schools and hospitals and everything in the right locations and put the right density around it from day one, have the public transport corridors there from day one, not retrofitted afterwards. And that's the kind of vision I have of something a bit special and different. Learn from everything we've done wrong in the last 100 years of urban development in this city, in this country, and don't repeat it. Up there is my hope.
I couldn't agree more on that part. We're very good at getting too busy, or the road infrastructure gets way too utilised, and then we're trying to patch it up afterwards.
Which is that the scale of this thing is what makes it special. So Caboolture and Rochdale that we mentioned before, they were all fragmented. Yeah, it was ownership of different people, and different developers had different parts, and trying to get agreement between developers of who's going to put what pipe in where. I think the beauty of this one and the difference of it is it's one master developer with the DMA over the top of the whole lot of it. They will be able to control that. Will hopefully make a big difference. That it's not going to get split up in the different groups and that controls there, but still huge challenges that this thing is in the first couple steps of a journey, but it can't be a journey that takes 15 years. One, because those cane farmers will go bankrupt in the meantime, and that's a different problem, but we need it now. So I rightly, when I talk on behalf of council on that project, and I think the state have made it clear that we're not doing this so in 15 years' time it's still sitting there. We're doing this. We expect to see excavators on the ground and dwellings come out of the ground not long after.
Would you need to introduce something like a temporary planning instrument to achieve that outcome?
PDA will take care of that.
Will.
So that scale needs a PDA. It is the appropriate state pathway
Of course, yeah.
for that. And then the important parts of, we've seen PDAs declared and then not work, Caboolture being one of them, or different versions of it. PDA in Southport didn't work. So PDA that's got clear structure planning, clear infrastructure planning, and clear timelines in it. Learn from those failed PDAs. The LNP have done a brilliant job of picking up, like Caboolture, that has sat there just not doing enough, and have very quickly shaken it pretty hard and now got it moving. More of that is needed. Using the big sticks available to them get the job done.
I think a big failure of mine is in 2009 when I formed the Future Housing Task Force, which is all about affordable housing, smarter, smaller homes. I inherited something which was horrible in 2015 when we built the first affordable rooming house. And I say it was a horrible name because everyone felt that that was halfway housing, when in actual fact, the average income on 425 rooms that we've handed over in the last 5 months in Brisbane, well, actually probably closer to a year, that one, is that they have to earn $80,000 a year. They are mostly first responders. They work for council, government. Obviously, they would. They're the biggest provider of income, as well as the biggest provider of jobs in Australia is government. They're firemen, they're nurses, they're all those sort of things. And in the time we open a rooming house for rent, it takes us approximately 2 to 3 days for it to be fully rented. I failed in the Gold Coast. We can't deploy funds for affordable housing in the Gold Coast because as late as 6 months ago, when I've met with the mayor and subsequently I met you for the first time, when a council's got the $91 billion infrastructure pipeline, you need infrastructure charges to make it work. Brisbane, second largest local authority in the world, has no infrastructure charges, allowing us to deploy capital that's affordable. When we have to pay $105,000 less a credit for a rooming house, it's impossible. And we've had to say to people, we're moving you now to Port Macquarie and to Coffs Harbour, those areas we can supply, because there's 8 million people in New South Wales who want to stay there. And they have a bigger affordable problem than even you do in New South Wales generally. The problem with New South Wales is it takes longer to do anything. It's a long wait. It takes us 4 weeks in Brisbane from the time we put it to council to get it out. In Gold Coast, you're limited to 4 rooms. Infrastructure charges, as mentioned, is $80,000 or more. And it's just something that means that we can no longer provide housing for essential workers because they need to earn $161,000 a year for the average rent at $900. I can't just whack a granny flat in the Gold Coast. I can't just add additions. There's a whole bunch of stuff I cannot do. So your success for me is my failure to as a task force, deliver affordability. Is there a way that we can work with you from the private sector to the public sector, anyone, doesn't matter who, with your council to actually provide some incredible affordable solutions, which we're doing on a world basis and across Australia, but not here, where you're about to hit 1 million people?
I think you just summarised really well the much broader problem we have, that it's easy to talk about dwellings and talk about the high level numbers, but dwellings mean different things to different people. And most we go to, it's the 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house for mum and dad and 2 kids, but that's not a dwelling for the majority of people. For a single woman over 55, she's not looking for a 4-bedroom house. For a student who's just come out of university, might have got their first job, she's a nurse at Robina Hospital and doesn't necessarily want to rent the same way that we would have shared a house back in the day. Maybe not with this bloke. He was I reckon he would have been interested in the beers in the day, but So like it is that. So dwelling topology and diversity is key in the new planning scheme.
Yeah.
So first part, I think in all those examples you gave, it's on slab timber frame construction.
Yes.
It's got to be that. If it's not that, it ain't going to stack up and it's not going to get dwellings on the ground. Infrastructure charges, especially for room accommodation, I mean, that is the killer in amongst it.
Yeah.
The 4, not being able to do 5, let alone suggest 6 anywhere, makes it very difficult too. But infrastructure charges, the stack's just gone straight away. It's definitely something the mayor has raised on several occasions, is why are all these room accommodation providers able to do this in Brisbane? We can't here. And I got to admit, last term, I think there was a political wing who just weren't interested. I think they got caught up in the stereotypes of what they thought room accommodation was. They saw one bad example of what it looked like, or it was all concrete in the front yard and got 5 cars parked out the front. That's not what room accommodation looks like. It doesn't have to look like that way. With appropriate controls around design and car parking and landscaping, you can fix that front part.
Yeah.
Infrastructure charges, but if we don't reduce the regime for those, we're never going to see room accommodation occur in the coast, and that's a problem because it has to be part of the mix, just like purpose-built aged care accommodation does. If you're in that sector and you want to do a purpose-built aged care, you get the same car parking ratios if you're trying to do a normal medium unit density product. But that's not the car parking ratio, and just purely on car parking ratio, you might have killed that aged care proposal. Purpose-built student accommodation, same thing again. Every one of those sectors which is maturing in this country, and we're slowly getting the finance sector and the banks to get their head around the difference in all the different ones, and that it is a different financial stack and feasibility for all of them. We then need to change the rule book to make sure that they can actually be delivered sometime. And it's not just infrastructure charges part most of the time. Room accommodation, it definitely was.
Yeah.
But for most of those other ones, it's just the, hey, if you can just give us that 300 mil and not force us to do that, this thing works. That we're trying to do something scalable and repeatable. We can't bespoke this everywhere, which is something I think of the new regional plan for the state government to get right, is that you guys don't just do stuff on the Gold Coast, you do it everywhere. You can't have a different set of rules in every council. It's too difficult. Like we need volume and scale and rinse and repeatability. We need what happened after the World War with the cottages. It wasn't bespoke everywhere. You got the same cottage built everywhere and just repeated, because there wasn't different rules with different councils. We need to I really do think the state government has to be more heavy-handed in that space and be prepared to say, listen, we love local government, we love councils, but the industry have made it clear we have to get rinse and repeatability going here, that we need to be able to get the construction sector to come up with a design that they know they can deliver on the Gold Coast, in Moreton, in Logan, in Brisbane, and not have to make changes. There might be some facade changes, have a Gold Coast version of it, looks a bit coastal, have a Moreton Bay version of it, but the bones of it and the size of the block it goes on and the infrastructure charges, they can't be any different, because it's just killing getting that product to market.
We actually have a challenge coming up July next year, 2027, where there's about 10 groups so far supporting us on affordability, that we deliver that at the Brisbane Convention Centre. We're working with some councils across Australia and other places to deliver their version of affordability, or their version of a problem that they have for retirement, or their version of one of our most successful models where a boomer is happy to move to the Gold Coast and live on a 100 square metre unit upstairs with their own deck, downstairs a lift, and then 4 units at the bottom. Allows them to provide an income for themselves, but at the same time solve affordable housing. That model for the Gold Coast would be mind-boggling and would introduce an incredible amount of funding there. And as much as you can't touch on infrastructure charges being, how would we say, reduced to accept something like that, it is a big impediment, because $100,000 equates to a very large amount of money that we have to then get the rent for. And all of a sudden the rent's not affordable.
And you were right. Like, we need infrastructure charges to fund part of that infrastructure. It doesn't cover all of it by any stretch, but it covers the majority of it. But I think in the rooming accommodation example, what's been put to me by other representatives from that sector is, the argument is that it's got more impact on the local infrastructure network than a regular house, whatever a regular house is. But we'll say it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, or a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Well, then okay, if you want to put forward a 5-suite rooming accommodation, the first 3 bedrooms shouldn't have charges on it, because the house that was going to be there was going to have that same impact.
Yes.
Let's talk about a number that works on unit 4 and 5, or possibly 4, 5, 6, that for the extra impact that will have on the network, we get a recovery from.
Yes.
$10,000, $12,000, a kind of sweet kind of thing.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, instead of $120,000 if you're appraising a 5 or a 6,
Yes.
we're now talking about 30, 36 kind of thousand,
Which we pay in Morton.
and the stack works.
We pay that in Morton.
And again, for most people driving past it, they'll never have an idea, because if we get the design, the car parking, the landscaping at the front right, they'll never have an idea what the hell was there. But it's going to put 5 people into a really high quality product that you restrict where they can go, so it's close to the right things and for the right reasons, and get a great outcome.
I think, and that's just one product that can be mentioned. There's so many others.
Like all of them, aged care, student accommodation, there is a diversification going on all the time, and there's more and more being introduced all the time, let alone before we get to the chat of what modular construction might do in this space in the future, which will change the game again, which is why I'm really keen, because if modular is ever going to work in this country, it's going to have to be by volume and scale, that manufacturing element to it. Well, that means you can't have a different design between different councils.
Yeah, that was my next question. Actually, modular 3D printing. It sounds good in theory. I think Kevin's done a bit of work in this space, and it's worked out to be similar pricing. I know that's changing, but there's also the real world application of getting a loan for something that's in a shed and then getting it onto site. So until that gets sorted out, there's always going to be those headwinds, I suppose. And look, I think if it comes from the top end down, that those changes can happen. Do you see that happening in the near future? Or?
I bloody hope so, because if we don't get what a lot of European countries have been doing for 40 years and what Japan and Korea have been doing for 40 years happening in this country soon, we're never going to get there. So we are never going to fix this problem through more tradies. We will never have enough tradies, no matter how many we put on apprenticeships, no matter how we bring in from overseas. We are never going to solve the problem in this country just through more tradesmen alone. We have to get more out of each tradesman, which the idea behind modular or manufactured product, being able to do it in a warehouse in controlled conditions, helps with that you can get more out of it. The quality assurance side of things becomes a lot easier as well. It's the volume potential behind it that is the big part.
Only one bank will lend on it, though.
Yeah, and that's so the finance sector in this country has got a lot of catching up to do, and they're doing that. So in the same way, it's taken them a decade to get their head around BTR, something that the US and Europe have been doing for a long time.
That's built to rent for our listeners.
Yeah, you've finally got the Mervacs of the world who are really diving into that properly now. It's still bloody difficult to make stack up, but do I see light modular construction, manufacturing going on? Absolutely, at scale. And that's the problem. It's a scale piece. It can't be for bespoke homes. It's got to be a factory that is there to put 5,000 dwellings out a year. Heavy precast modular is the other one. If you've been in Europe, you've been in Copenhagen, you've been in the UK recently, you've probably been around a BTR precinct that is built from heavy modular precast panels. 30, 40 story buildings, completely built off-site, that they are delivering for 30, 35% cheaper than what in situ construction would look like. And it's a Meccano set. There's 10 people on site. The tradesmen are all in the warehouse. They're on site, it's the Meccano putting it together. Because they've had the time, they've got the architecture right, like these things look good, they're done the right way, but the speed and agility is there. I could see in the not too distant future that we'll have that here because it has to be part of the piece. I don't think it's going to be by delivering a family dwelling on the ground straight away. It might be through bathrooms, I think is a great example. Getting a waterproof and a tiler and getting a decent one is a real hard job in this country at the moment. And we've got issues everywhere where people are getting work done and the quality is shit.
Yeah.
Do bathroom units in the warehouse. Do in situ stick on slab on site, but maybe your bathroom units, instead of however long it'd take a bathroom from stop to go in situ on site at the moment, can that be dropped in on the back of a truck where you've got a really well delivered, exceptionally high quality, QA'd on site, just dropped into place? What kind of savings could that make on a site? Might be a first step. But do I see that in Australia's future? Absolutely, because if we don't get to that kind of stage, we're never going to get to the dwellings that we need to do and never see the price points that manufacturing piece can bring along. If you're lucky enough to go to Dubai, that's all heavy precast modular. And they're delivering 6-star product from that of exceptionally high quality. That's all precast, it's all manufactured. If it's good enough for all those countries, it's got to be good enough for here, and it has to be part of the solution amongst everything else.
So you've got 450 people a week coming into our town. That's a good number. And every time there's 270 people arrive, if you look at the data from Suburban Futures as an example, Ross Elliott and the guys, they're saying that every time 270 people arrive at the Gold Coast, that's another hospital bed, that's another school room, that's another this and that. You're dealing with this at the level of the fastest growth council in the history of Australia. You've just outsold Sydney in terms of your average price point. I mean, this is mind-boggling for a town that used to be God's waiting room. It used to be where you came to die. Now you come here to live, you know, and that's a massive change. I mean, you know, go back a few years when we cancelled death duties and Joe Bjelke-Petersen said, come here, and everybody did because they didn't have to pay to die. We've matured so much at the Gold Coast, yet when you hit that million, that's 800,000 cars. That's hospitals that we just have two problems. How do we house them? And then how do we make that happen? You know, my own girl just spent 12 hours just getting seen because she got a cut in her eye before you can even say hello. It's already at points. I mean, you mentioned earlier crayons. You're in charge of the whole pack of crayons. And for the sake of the exercise, let's call residential A pink. And then all of a sudden you've got to deal with the hospitals, the schools, the infrastructure. You can do it on a big project like Norwell, but you're now being asked to retrofit the missing middle. That's a mind-boggling problem.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, just getting enough dwellings and roofs over people's heads is a big enough challenge, let alone where do the kids go to school? How do you expand the hospital? How do you expand the community facilities and all the other infrastructure pieces with it? And rightly, a lot of Gold Coasters who may not have been here as long as my family, might have been here 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, are going, well, there's not a real good track record of government actually getting this right. And let's call it that we're not. Like governments have proven time and time again to talk a big game about infrastructure delivery and timely infrastructure delivery and have failed to do it. And it is the kind of challenge that definitely keeps me up at night is, you know, from a local government point of view, where the local roads, the local sections, the local sports fields, the sewage treatment plant, schools and hospitals, police stations, fire stations, all the other critical things that make a city, I've got no control over. My Crown pack doesn't get to those. No. And getting state bureaucrats and council bureaucrats to work together and to not spend a lot of time talking about nothing and actually get on with it is a big challenge in itself, let alone, you know, that's the bloody bureaucrats, the politicians. That's the second quickest way to kill a good idea is that politicians get involved. So rightly, I think a lot of people are looking really heavily at this new state government to say, well, Mr. Premier, you've talked a big game about generational infrastructure. He was strong on that. You know, cancellation of light rail stage 4. We're going to bring you a plan for the whole city that's going to be generational. We're going to spend money like you've never seen money spent here before. Big promises, and we're about to see a budget, see what kind of commitments come with it. I think what we have to be really careful of is plan for the whole city is fine. New planning scheme for the whole city is fine. If we can't deliver the infrastructure, we have to be smarter about where we do invest. We have to be prepared to say, listen, we'd love to turn that suburb on or that area on, but we can't afford the infrastructure now. So we're going to hold that area. We're going to put all our money into that area and make sure we actually get the roads, the community centres, the libraries, the sewage treatment plants, the stormwater upgraded. And we're going to put the rules in place to make sure that we don't see undercooking of areas. We can't repeat Coomera again. No. Coomera is 50% undercooked on what it was meant to have as a population. Now, anyone who lives up there and knows the road network could go, well, Jesus, that's lucky. But that's just because the infrastructure plan that was a master plan has never been delivered. There's all these A, B, C, D, G roads that have never been built. And that gives people a feeling of, well, government talks about a plan but don't deliver on it. I am definitely keen that have the plan for the whole city, have a 20-year mindset, and that's the planning we've done is 20 years plus. Because when we hit 1 million, well, guess what, folks? The day after, the next person arrives. Like it's not going to end at 1 million. So control where we spend that money, have appropriate controls to make sure that minimum densities are achieved. That if we say we're going to spend $100 million of upgrades in that area because it can support 10,000 dwellings, well, it's got to be 10,000 dwellings. It can't be 9,000. It definitely can't be 5,000. It's got to be 10. Because that's billions of infrastructure to go into those places and to be supported. That's a big conversation for some politicians with a bit more spine than what we've seen from some councils and some state governments in the last 20, 30 years in this country to do.
Yeah, the mayor's been pretty vocal about his distaste that the light rail didn't get extended. Obviously, I think the alternative, correct me if I'm wrong, is extra buses and stuff going through there, and you've still kept that corridor, I suppose. What do you think that'll come back around down the track? Like, what are your thoughts? Do you think it's the wrong decision?
Yeah, I do. I think it was the wrong decision to cancel it. That it needed to be finished. That the idea with the light rail and the heavy rail getting to the airport is to have those two key north-south spines to then connect east-west with. So I think that it does need to be finished, and that it will be finished sometime in the future. What I'm really keen to see is for us to stop talking about single stages of public transport projects or single stages of the Coomera Connector and start talking about the whole of city network. Like, seriously, how much media time, how much politician time, how much community angst over one stage of a public transport network? Instead of talking about Nerang Broadbeach, about Varsity and Robina through to Miami, about talking about links up through Harbour Town, up through Oxley Drive to Helensvale, let alone actually getting real bus services to most of our suburbs. We can't keep getting caught up in cycles like this, where a project that was always set forward from day one, it was from Helensvale to Coolangatta Airport to Coolangatta, and then we let one stage drop off because of price, which in the end, in the scheme of things over 100 years, is not a huge amount of money. What could be lost to potential from it? What they're going to do next, I'm not sure of. I think the flavour is that it'll be, we don't see light rail necessarily in the future. It's more of the Brisbane Metro kind of style bus system on a dedicated corridor, which is a brilliant system, by the way. Like, I know a lot of people who've never got on a bus for whatever reasons, but will get on that metro system. So can I see a future of several corridors with that kind of dedicated bus corridor? And it must be dedicated, because if you can get in your car and get that to that place quicker, you're going to. You must be able to walk out to a bus stop, not have to look at a timetable, just be able to walk onto it and know you're going to get to wherever you want to go faster than getting in your car. Otherwise, no one's going to get on it.
Yeah.
Do I see those kind of corridors? Absolutely. Do I acknowledge that's billions and that you can't have the gold plated everywhere from day one? I do. I agree with the Premier that there might be some of those corridors start off as a bronze standard service. Some might be silver standard, and then gold being the ultimate. That might take us 30 years to achieve, but set a whole of city plan, legislate the bloody thing even, lock in a funding program behind it, and they don't have this section by section. Engage one contractor. If they perform, they just automatically roll on the next one. There should not be daylight between stages. And just get the bloody hell on with it, because it is going to grind the city to a halt if we don't start serious investment in those corridors.
No, couldn't agree more. When it's done properly and done well, like I just come back from Japan earlier in the year, you wouldn't drive your car around there.
Mate, you don't.
It's incredible where you can go to. You don't worry about parking. You can get everywhere you need to on time between a bus and a train. I would genuinely use it.
Yeah, you do. And that's not the only city. Like the cities who have made that kind of investment, who have been prepared to push past community opposition and deliver the long term against the short term pain and to make the big investments, none of those cities have regretted it. None of those cities are looking back now saying, oh, we wish we wouldn't have spent that 10 billion on that extra tunnel or the extra this. None of them are doing that. They're all going, holy Christ, thank God we did that when we did. Can you imagine trying to put that, retrofit it now? You get a chance to do this well once. I mean, it's critical. We are looking at these corridors of where future dwellings go. One of the key things on that list of if we're going to turn an area on is public transport. And if we can't have a lot of confidence of knowing what corridors are going to happen and what order they're going to happen in, and know if the state government says to us, hey, that corridor is going to be turned on in 5 years' time, get on with your planning around it about extra dwelling supply so that we can put bigger stormwater pipes in and bigger power pipes in and bigger gas pipes in while we're there. I mean, we're killing a great opportunity. And I am very determined to make sure we don't, that we use those corridors to be a great thing, that in 100 years' time, we've got a city that's laid out well, that has got some brilliant nodes all the way through out to Nerang and Wurrunga and those kind of areas, that anyone that wants to live out in Nerang should be able to get to the beach and get to the ocean way as simple as anything, and not in a car. They get on their bike, they go along the cycleway where they don't go through an intersection, they can walk here, they can get on a bus or whatever the mode of it is. I don't think that's a ridiculous proposition, and it's not demonizing cars. There will still always have to be a lot of cars in this city. People will need cars, but don't need it for every trip is the key. You might still have a car in the garage, but do you have to use it for every single thing you do every day? That's where we've got to get to, where you don't.
Yeah, I was one of those blow-ins, one of these cars that come into Gold Coast. We went down to Byron Bay. Wasn't a lot of work down there, obviously.
No.
Found myself to Gold Coast, and a lot of people that come from Melbourne, Sydney say that, well, typically there hasn't been a lot of, you want a high-paying job, you got to drive to Brisbane and come back. You see, obviously, Invest Gold Coast, got the film industry, and from my perspective, it seems like the Gold Coast market has matured. It's not that just tourism town anymore. Where do you see Gold Coast going and that kind of job hub? Obviously, COVID changed things a little bit as well, where a lot of families started moving here. I mean, we were selling estates and 30-40% of our stock was going to people coming up from Vic during COVID. Where do you see the city? Do you seeing that maturing happening? So, I mean, you've been here a lot longer than I have.
Mate, the COVID tipped fuel on the fire. Like, the curve was already going on, and it just tipped a bit of fuel on. You then got the Olympics coming up, which is a chance to tip a bit more fuel on it again. But the story of the diversification of this city's economy and those job opportunities that are coming out now is incredible. The breakfast was at this morning with the Australian Financial Review, and some of the stats they were talking about there. Like, it is not just in Australia outstripping every capital city by a mile. Like, we're outstripping capital cities around the world in terms of what's going on.
Wow.
The growth, film and screen is a huge one. The health and knowledge precinct, it is nuts, man. I was in there last week. Some of the businesses, some of the cutting edge, world leading businesses and tech that is in there that have chosen the Gold Coast above anywhere else in the world, it's just crazy. The jobs that come with that, like high paying, high quality jobs, they're moving their families here. And it's interesting for a lot of them. I was talking to one guy, so I can't even pronounce what kind of scientist he is. And he's got more letters after his name than the alphabet. Mate, it wasn't his choice. He could get a job anywhere in the world. It was his wife. They came here, had no idea about the Gold Coast. Like, they'd seen some pictures. They're from the States. They'd been to Sydney. They'd been to Melbourne. They come here. They went for a walk on the beach and said, we're staying here. They just, Invest Gold Coast has got an incredible opportunity to capitalise on what is happening in the city. That all those ingredients that are coming together, that people who are now living here and have got capital to expend through the city. The health and knowledge precinct is one example of a great sector in the health and knowledge space. Film and screen, space and defence. Like, there is a Gold Coast defence industry. Now, we're not going to see submarines getting built in the Broadwater, but are there components of future submarines, components of future warships, components of future satellites getting built in the city? They're getting built everywhere because those companies have got a choice that they can be based here and ship those things other places. And why are they based here? Because people want to live here, because it's where they want to raise their kids. Like, that aspiration of the lifestyle of this city and to be a Gold Coaster really means something now. And it's driving people up from Sydney and Melbourne every week, and they're not going to Brisbane. They're not choosing Brisbane. They're choosing down here for those reasons. And I'd like to think a big part of that is that they see a council who is very aggressive in this space. We are not afraid to throw our weight around more than the state and feds to attract investment, to help that stuff occur. When got a mayor who goes around the world talking about that, bring your family here, and our vision is that your kids will never have to leave the city, that no matter what profession they want to be and no matter what they want to be, they'll be able to do it here in world-class schools, world-class unis, and in amongst this lifestyle. It's pretty powerful stuff. The numbers don't lie. It creates problems. It creates challenges. That growth and all of that, I mean, we've got to keep going with it. But where the city is currently positioned and what we could capitalise in the back of the Olympics, which for me, it's the first regional Olympics. It's not LA. It's not Paris. It's not London. It's a regional Olympics. The investment that comes on the back of the Olympics is real, but it's tens of billions of dollars worth. It flows behind every Olympics. That investment's going to have a choice. Does it go to Brisbane and it's dirty brown river, or does it look just a little bit further down the map? There's this magical city with its own airport on the ocean with a hinterland, with plenty of zoned industrial land for what they need, because in the end, you need industrial land to put big buildings on. It's got these precincts for tech and for health and knowledge next to world-class universities. Well, I know where my money's going, and I got a clear thing in my head that on the back of the Olympics, so 10 years after the Olympics, when they're doing the reconciliation of where the investment went, I will bet more comes to this city than it does to Brisbane.
So a challenge for me is this. I'm being asked to move our tents to Port Macquarie into Coffs Harbour and solve some issues that they've got. And they've got some doozies. I mean, they've got some good things happening. There's no traffic lights at the end of this year from Tweed to Sydney. You know, Coffs is the last one. But we are solving affordable housing there. It's not difficult. What if we could solve affordable housing here with your support? Meaning that we come to you with the idea rather than come to you with what we want to do. We come to you with the suggestion of and have an open discussion, totally in the sense of not expecting any outcome other than this is where we see the opportunity.
Yeah,
is that something we could consider or not?
Mate, it absolutely is. And this has been a really key theme for every event, every opportunity I've had to speak in the last few years is that while I've got enough knowledge in a lot of these sectors to be dangerous, I don't understand it fully. And I've got a building full of bureaucrats who are very well intended and who are strategic planners who want to address dwelling supply, they want to address affordability, but in the end, they're government officers. They are not been on your side of the fence.
I've met them all.
Yeah, and we need to close the gap. So in the end, you know, as someone who's very clear in my head of that it's the private sector that makes investment, takes the risk, and that we need to listen more.
97%.
That's what we have to do in this space is instead of it taking 10 years of you beating your head against the wall, meeting politicians and bureaucrats and then having a government change and repeating it again, we've got this unique window with a very aggressive mayor and a very open-minded deputy mayor and planning chair to not be afraid to belt bureaucrats together from all levels of government, say, would you stop thinking about this and think you know the answer and just listen to the market, look at the feasibilities, understand. You don't have to look that far into the crystal ball to see what needs to be done. Change the rule book to reflect that. And really importantly, don't just change the rule book and let it sit there and think that in 2 years' time it's still going to work, because your feasibilities are not going to be the same 6 months after, let alone 6 years after. We must be prepared to update the rule book more regularly. That if those things change and the feasibilities change, do we need to change the size of the box? Do we need to change the infrastructure charges regime? We must be open-minded at all times to what is actually feasible, what is not, what sectors are working, what is not, what can the finance sector support, what can't they, and change the rulebook to reflect it.
And would I take that to someone like Luke, I think his name is, from Tom Tate's team? I think I met him.
Yeah, so Luke is the mayor's former chief of staff. He's still around the place, but he's not the chief of staff anymore.
Is it you?
So, yeah, like I'm a good first point, and I'll definitely know where to direct you to.
So if I could come up with a solution in less than, say, a year that works and you like it, we could do it.
It's not just if I like it. I got to admit, it's not a dictatorship where it's just me. But
Benevolent dictatorship.
if you or anyone else in the industry who understands a particular sector really well, who has an eye to what the future of it looks like, has an eye who can clearly articulate what in the current rule book is not working, what's holding it up, where in the feasibility it turns red, and where you think there's a lever that this local government could change, or where we could advocate to the state government to adjust the lever, you'll have open ears from me and are always welcome to come in. And that's to anyone in any sector, student accommodation, aged care, whatever it may be, especially if you're someone that's been exposed to what's happening overseas and you're just scratching your head going, why is Australia not doing this yet? Bring it to us. I'm not a miracle worker. I can't promise that it'll happen overnight, but really definitely have very open ears and very open eyes to what we could do. Absolutely. And love having that, because I don't have the answers. Those bureaucrats don't have the answers, but in amongst all of us, with the private sector being the key to it, because it's your money, your risk, you delivering it. If we're not tapping into that, then we're just wasting our time.
It's very much both sides. You've got the infrastructure and a budget and things to deliver to, and like you said, Coomera's 50% underutilised. We've got one of those medium density sites in Coomera, and we very nearly did a 6-lot subdivision, and now we've settled with a 34 single bedroom townhouse, or like just single bedroom units. But again, there was no rule book in to say we could have just done the 6 lots, but we've ended up with a 34 units at the end of the day. And that's what we need to get better at.
Yeah, it is. And because I know why you go for the 6 lots, because one is simplicity and because the return on it. We need to be able to say, okay,
the project would be completed already and done. But
so you look at medium density, go, we can't make a little 6-story unit product work, or we can't make that kind of townhouse product work, so we'll just go for the subdivision. We should be prepared to say, hold up, what would we need to change in the rules to get the medium density product to work, so that you don't just go straight to the straight subdivision. To be prepared to.
So all things considered, knowing, where you actually want the development, and selfishly for mum, dad developers, which is probably most of our listeners, Where do you see the opportunities, and where would you like to see the opportunities? Like if you tomorrow quit the job and you're to do some, the missing middle or, that infill development, where do you see the opportunities on the Gold Coast?
Mate, promise you not quitting tomorrow. Don't see that in the short term future.
I'm going to ask you your ambitions after. So.
Having those days. But so I mentioned the inland spine before. So that kind of area that halfway between the M1 and the ocean. So from Hope Island, Helensvale, Oxenford, Ashmore, Benoa, heading all the way down through that whole spine, the whole way down. There is huge potential in there. There's available infrastructure. They tend to be the older suburbs where there was bigger stormwater pipes, bigger sewer pipes put in. It was cheaper and easier, and it's just what happened. So we've got some infrastructure availability, and the upgrades required to the road network are not huge. It might be converting a roundabout to a signalised set of intersections. So those kind of suburbs, bigger blocks, great locations, and where people want to live, because they got great schools, they got great unis, they got great medical facilities. That's where people want to live. It's where people want to raise families. They got the great parks, the great sports fields. So any of those suburbs, you're never going to go wrong in. We just got to make sure we get the rule book right so that you can secure something in there. Or if you already own in there and your kids are left home and you're wondering what you do with your 800 square metres in Ashmore, what kind of options are on the table? Because at the moment you can't do a lot. So what are we going to put on the table as something to look at so that maybe you still live in Ashmore, but a few more people live on your block? Or can you downsize into a purpose-built aged care in Ashmore that isn't because you're at the absolute end of your life, it's just that you want to downsize into something smaller, but you don't want to leave the cafe or the community that you know. We need to deliver on those things as well.
Well, the Carrara and the Ashmores of the world, those bigger blocks that are actually, like you say, selfishly, we would love the urban sprawl and just say, hey, you go do another big subdivision out there. But I think that's the quickest and easiest way to, what we were talking before, put in a different, crayon on those pieces. And like I say, if you get the mix right, keep the house, do a couple of townies at the back, or do a little smaller in one into two. The head of planning, we're listening to Logan, they're doing a lot of those smaller lots, and they're doing some of those terraces, and that product mix is as much as, everyone wants to still be on their quarter acre blocks. It's just not the real reality. It's going to have to change.
Mate, and they don't. So while there's plenty of people might want to be in a quarter acre block still, a lot of people don't. Like it. Mum and dad are both working. Weekends don't have a lot of time for maintenance on things. They don't want that land out the back with it. So we have to respect that case. It's more about where they live and the lifestyle around it and the quality of the restaurants and cafes and community facilities and sports clubs that are around it. So we need to reflect that in those changes and be prepared to move with the times in that space and to not get caught up, because I think people get scared that when they see planning scheme changes and they see a colour change in the map, they think it's going to be high rises everywhere. It's not. It may be that in the central pocket where your existing shopping centre is, with Benoa Gardens example, that 17,000 square metre site with 3 schools, a hospital and a whole heap of other commercial things around it, walking distance to Botanical Gardens, walking distance to Bruce Small Fields, and it's mostly at-grade car park. Instead, we've now given an approval where that owner can redevelop the site, redevelop all the retail commercial into what modern contemporary retail commercial looks like, and deliver about 415 dwellings on top of it. That's a good outcome. That's a great outcome with no impact. The height of those towers, it doesn't put a shadow on anybody. It doesn't cause any issues. And interestingly with that one, the infrastructure upgrades that they must deliver to the local road network before they do any other development on site, they must do them first, will actually address some current day issues, some safety issues around those schools. Growth is not something to be scared of. It's a conversation we have to have, and there's great positives that can come from it beyond just putting roofs over people's heads. There's a lot of other positives can come from it.
And the latest one is the cow paddock, of course.
Yes.
I mean, that's like you drive through cow. That's unusual. And it's wet.
Yeah.
It's undulating. It's wet.
It is, and for 30 years, no one could have done the earthworks and never made anything stack up on there.
No.
But now, at the price point of what a square metre of dirt in the city is worth and what a square metre of concrete in a tower is worth, someone thinks they can do the earthworks and have a very big lake to deal with hydraulics. Hydraulics can be dealt with. That's easily done.
Of course.
And what's proposed
most councils don't like lakes because they end up having to maintain them.
Well, interestingly, these ones have said we'll take care of it.
Wow.
So they'll take the maintenance burden of it. And a lot of councils don't like lakes because what was delivered in the 90s when it was a relatively new idea has had problems.
Yes.
Okay, but since then, just like stormwater, we've seen evolutions all the time. So governments are pretty good at because of one bad outcome, we'll just redo the rule books so it can never happen again. Let's not do that. Let's look at the new technologies. Let's look at the new proprietary devices. Let's look at the new ways it's being done around the world. Test it out, give it a chance where appropriate. So that product on the cow paddock site, that is in their interest. They would prefer to take ownership of those lakes and maintenance of those lakes long term because they have a very clear vision of the kind of product and the kind of community they want to
I
build.
think it's a wellness thing, isn't it?
It is, which that wellness space and in what people want to live with for the future and the kind of facilities they want to have around them. It's relatively new coming to Australia, but what is happening, especially in places like Dubai and London, and what people's expectations of wellness looks like, and the kind of facilities and tech that it comes with that, it's nuts. It's extraordinary. Best of luck to them. It's just about to be, I think it might have been formally lodged now. It's a big site and a great location. And as much as I love seeing a couple of cows in the joint, I really need more dwellings than I need cows in the city.
Yeah.
It's probably more of an urgent need at this moment.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. I have a different solution for the cows, but that's for a different time.
I mean, like, just for our listeners, if you take, say, Melbourne and Sydney, the average amount of people there is 440 people per square kilometre. In Brisbane, it's currently sitting at 165 per square kilometre. I have not done my homework as to what number per square kilometre that Gold Coast is, but it is a massive waste of space.
I would bet with all our canals and waterways,
You're probably
I would bet it's half that again.
Frightening.
Yeah, it is, but it's also a great opportunity because we can't fill those canals and waterways in. We've got these. Everyone talks about the green behind the gold, but the blue and the green behind the gold is actually really important. Our canal systems, our lake systems, are a really integral part of what makes the Gold Coast special, and they're great assets that are well located that can have more recreation around them. So the available land is minimal, and there ain't going to be more of it. A whole heap of potential dwellings up in Norwell isn't the silver bullet either. And I hate to disappoint a couple of state MPs, or one in particular, but
Would Bluefield housing change that?
it could be part of it. But Norwell's not the silver bullet either. We have to get more out of every part of the city. Every suburb is going to carry more people in the future of the city. We shouldn't be scared of that. We should commit to understanding a rules-based approach to what areas we turn on when. We should commit to holding politicians and governments to account that if they say they're going to deliver infrastructure, they actually do. And I'm all for that. Like, if I say we're going to turn an area on and we're going to spend this much money on that road and on this and this, and I don't, then kick me out of office. The community's going to have to get better at that because we're going to have to get some governments to make sure they deliver on their promises in the infrastructure space.
So when we go back to your family, when you arrived here in
1860.
all the cities that Australia had are still the same cities that we have. Yours now is the first one that potentially could be the first city in Australia in the last couple of hundred years.
I know, they refer to Bradfield as a new city around Western Sydney Airport, so I guess that might kind of be, it'll be part of the Gold Coast, that's for sure, but the scale of it, that kind of scale, it's definitely on that kind of potential of the size of a new city, and it is bigger than most of the regional cities or regions in Queensland. It's huge. And again, do we need cane farms in southeast Queensland? No. That industry's had its time. And while I'd love to think that there'd always be a chance to drive out through the cane fields, how beautiful it is, and it is beautiful, that's a whole heap of families out there whose businesses are dying a very slow death, whose families want to talk about how do I control the wealth that is in this property and get something out of it so I can redeploy it for my kids and grandkids and great-grandkids, which is an aspiration we should all have. So a chance for that dignified exit for them, a chance to do something pretty special in between, because it ain't Western Sydney. I was down in Sydney recently and out near the new airport, and the airport's very impressive, but it's out the bloody middle of nowhere in Western Sydney. Look where this is located. This is on Southern Moreton Bay. This is between two rivers. Like, this could be something very special, that all the waterways and water bodies that will have to be part of it, that could be something pretty special too. A new city built around water bodies and waterways, the recreational uses that could come with that, not trying to retrofit South Banks in afterwards, actually doing that from day one.
Yeah.
It's an extraordinary opportunity on a scale that we don't get to see in this country very often. And it happens to be in a city that has got an attitude of let's do it and do it well.
So for Mark Hammel, the deputy mayor of this big town that's becoming a massive city, in very simple terms, you've said you're not quitting, which is really unusual. When someone gets as intelligent as you have, and I have to compliment you on that, your ability to handle all the crayons. I've never seen that in town planning before, where you know the pinks and the reds and the blues.
And my ability to throw them out the window too.
Yeah, I get that. I'm yet to test that one. I haven't seen that happen yet.
It's happening more often lately, but yeah.
Well, not in my time. But I'm really excited to know that it's possible that those crayons can be discussed. So I guess in conclusion, this is your show. This is your town. Are you happy with the fact that it's going to continue to grow? It's unstoppable. You've 450 a week. It could get to 1,000 a week. You have to deal with probably each city like Brisbane, Melbourne, 1 million people coming into each one of them by 2045. You're no longer Vegas. For the first time in history, you are the Gold Coast. Nothing to do with Brisbane. That's gone. You've matured. The kids have moved out. You've just taken it to a whole new level. Tommy Tate's moved this place where he needs more cranes, and he's got it. And now you just look at it and you go, wow, this is just not stoppable. You have a train. How do you handle it? What are you going to do?
So I can confirm I got my normal morning text message and the 76 cranes in the sky today.
Yeah.
I'm big on that, and that's pretty impressive to look at that coastline at the moment.
Yes, it is.
The train can't be stopped. So I regularly get emails or reading comments about I'll just put we're full sign up. I hate to tell you folks, it doesn't exist. And I know there's a couple Karens in Palm Beach that won't be real happy with that, but it can't be stopped. Growth is coming if we like it or not. The more time we spend beating our chest trying to stop growth or argue against it or trying to argue against it in certain areas, that's less time being spent having a real conversation about how do we plan for it and plan for it well.
Yeah.
And I ain't interested in wasting my time. I love this job. I don't come from this background of government background. I very much come from a very strong private sector background, but this city is so goddamn exciting. And it was exciting enough being planning chair, let alone what I've got to see as deputy mayor now. I think Tom Tate deserves a significant kudos for what he's been able to lead from 2012.
Yeah.
It is nuts to travel around Australia and travel around the world. And when you say from the Gold Coast, they know Tom Tate's name. Now, I know not everyone in the city agrees with his message or agrees with his position or how he goes about it, but has it put us on a stage where people looking to invest anywhere in this country in the world have looked at the Gold Coast and they said you went out to hear politicians talk like that, so positive and so optimistic and so aspirational that way they do. People actually want that. The world's a bit of a shitty, scary place at the moment. Like they're looking for a bit of positivity and optimism, and they get that in barrels here. So I think I came into local government in the city in an incredibly unique time. I got elected in 2020, a week after COVID shut the city down was when I was first elected. So I've come through the back of that. I'm on the tails of the work done by a lot of people before me. And we're just about to have an opportunity to tip some more fuel on the fire that I get to be in the middle of that, but do that in a very conscious point of knowing that the difficulties and challenges that come with that growth require just as much effort. And I definitely turn my head to those things as well, that we have to be more closely aligned with the state and federal government to get the funding we need and get the commitments we need in a more timely and orderly fashion. But still believe in something that I have always had drilled into me from my father and uncle up on the farm, that politicians and leaders in this country are important. And there's been some great ones who have managed to address a lot of those issues in the years through being prepared to not make short-term political decisions, to make long-term decisions, long-term investment. That's what I'm here for. I'm not afraid to have the argument about pulling levers that might cause me short-term grief at a political level, but deliver what's needed long-term. I'll never lose a night's sleep of backing those kind of things. I'll lose one if I start making decisions based on re-election, and you won't get that from me ever. And we need more of that at every level of government. And I'm just really pleased to be part of the most unique city in the country, and one that's got such huge potential, and to play my little role in amongst it. And again, that invitation to anyone out there, that if you're in one of these sectors, if you've got an idea, if you've got a block of land already where the current rule book says no, but you've got a feasibility that says, well, if we could do this, or if the box could be a little bit taller, if we could do this instead, it'd be a yes. Bring it in. Bring it in. We'll look at it. That's the at least we can do that. If it's still a no afterwards, at least you'll know why, and then you can look at something else. But I'll bet most of the time it'll be, we didn't understand that. We didn't understand your feasibility. We didn't understand your sector well enough. Let's look at changing the rules and get this thing moving.
I think Gold Coast is obviously open for business, which is great. I think some exciting times ahead, and keen to see what the new planning scheme looks like, so we can see where it lands.
I got one last question. It's good to see someone that has the guts to pull the levers and actually do things. I'm a fan. It's good. What are your plans in the future? Where's Mark Hammel going? What does he want to do?
Yeah, we want you in the private sector.
So I definitely, I'm guessing you're kind of asking if I'm going to have a crack at anything bigger in politics in the future is kind of where you're going. I've definitely never been one in my private career to not be prepared to look behind a door. Like, the simple fact is I've got a launch pad as deputy mayor that I could have a crack at the mayoralty in the future, and it does interest me because I've seen the power of when you've got a leader at the front who does that positioning to the world. But I really love this role as well. The mayor's out the front all the time, and sometimes when you're the deputy, you can be in the shadows a bit more, and you can just get on with the work and get on with the grunt side of things, and the new planning scheme is just as important, so that doesn't bother me either. I miss the private sector. I do. Like, I miss business. I miss talking business. I miss talking numbers in that space. It's why this role suits me. It's why I love feasibility models coming in. So definitely open to it, but also open that if there happens to be someone else in this city who I meet that I go, shit, you'd make a great mayor, and you're the kind of mayor we need right now, and I'd happily sit in a chamber and back that person, I'm open to that as well. Just excited to have this opportunity at the moment. Very thankful for the people who voted me in the first place and continue to support me now. And just really pleased to play my little role in helping the city be everything it can be in the future.
So I guess for me, babysitting Eric's chair, it's just such an honour to be able to have this unplugged moment with you. It's been fantastic. Thank you. And obviously on behalf of Shannon and Carson, they can speak for themselves, but I'm just the guest speaker here for this one. But it's been really great, very enlightening. It gives me hope to believe that affordability can be done in the Gold Coast. And I believe you'd make a great mayor. So from me, thank you. It's been an honour to have you on board, and our listeners have learned a lot about the Gold Coast today, and they're going to enjoy it. So thank you again for being here.
Guys, thank you so much. I absolutely loved it.
Thank you.
That's it for us, guys.
Thank you for watching that episode of Unemployable. It was an absolute pleasure having you along for the ride. If you'd like to watch another episode, simply click here, but make sure before you go, subscribe to the channel.